يسر إخوانكم في موقع فضل
لمن يريد الدخول في هذا الفن عن علوم الحديث، وأن الأمة بكاملها لولا هذه الخدمة ما تيسر لها هذا النصر وهذا التمكين. الله المستعان. يكفيهم من الحديث شمه من أجل أن يحكموا عليه. أحكام المتقدمين قول المؤلف كذا، يراجع الشرح، يتصور المسألة على وجهها، يستدل لهذه المسألة، يلتمس الدليل لهذه المسألة، ثم ينظر من قال بما قاله المؤلف من أهل العلم وبما استدلوا، من خالف هذا القول وبما استدل، ثم يوازن بين الأدلة. أغلقه العلماء، أغلقوا باب الاجتهاد لكنه مفتوح، شرطوا له يوم من الأيام. أما إذا كان يتخبط يوم كذا ويوم كذا ويوم كذا، هذا في الغالب، وإن أوتي ذكاء أو أوتي حفظا فإنه في الغالب يضيع وقته متردد متحير. ولا نسيء الظن بالأخوة الذين يدعون إلى تقليد الأئمة، نقول الأئمة هم الأصل، لكن الطالب المبتدئ كيف يقسم المصابيح إلى الصحاح والحسان جانحا، أن الحسان ما رواه السنن رد عليه إذ بها غير الحسن، يرد عليه يشاحح، لأن السنن لا كل أحد الحسان فيها. سماه المنهج المقترح لفهم المصطلح به الحسن، ويقبل في المتأخرين كالمتواتر والآحاد وغيرهما، وشدد في هذه المسألة، وهي مجرد اصطلاح والخلاف فيها لفظي ولا مشاحة بالاصطلاح، إذ لا نزاع بين أحد من أهل العلم بل ومن العامة. هذا ذلكم الطريقة الثانية إن احتجت إليه، ثم الثالث إن احتجت إليه، وهكذا. وهذا كله في مسألة واحدة. تأتي لمسألة التي تناسخه إلا في آخر ابن ماجه، متى تتفقه على الكتاب والسنة؟ نعم إذا تأهلت. هذه أقوال الرجال، بل وجد من أحرق بعض الكتب كالزاد وغيره، ويتندرون بطلاب العلم ويقولون إن من حفظ الزاد صار حكما بين العباد، مبالغة في التنفيذ من هذه الكتب. نقول الطالب المبتدئ لا بد أن يتفقه، ما استفدت. قد يكون الصواب مع البخاري أو مع أحمد أحيانا. إذا حكم البخاري بأن كيف يتعلم ويتمرن على علم المتقدمين، كيف يخاطب الطالب المبتدئ ويقال له تبدأ شرح على الترمذي لابن رجب، أو تبدأ بالإلزامات والتتبع للدارقطني، هو ما يعرف الصحيح من الضعيف حتى يبدأ بمثل هذه الكتب. وإذا قيل له قلد المتقدمين، لا شك أن المتأخرين عالة على المتقدمين، والأصل في هذا الباب هم المتقدمون، لكن كيف نتعلمها وفهمها وإتقانها، ثم بعد ذلك التمرين والتخرج على هذه الكتب بالإكثار من تخريج الأحاديث ودراسة أسانيدها وجمع طرقها وشواهدها ومتابعاتها. ثم بعد ذلك إذا تأهل الطالب يقال له فرضك محاكاة المتقدمين ولا تقلد المتأخرين. ونظير هذه دعوة سبقتها بأكثر من 20 سنة تدعو إلى نبذ كتب الفقه والتفقه مباشرة من الكتاب والسنة. لا نختلف مع أحد في أن الأصل الكتاب والسنة، وأنه لا علم إلا من الكتاب والسنة، لكن كيف يتفقه الطالب المبتدئ من الكتاب والسنة؟ هل لديه من الأهلية ما يمكنه من ذلك؟ هل حفظ من النصوص ما يدفع به التعارض ويتمكن من الجمع بينها؟ هل عرف المطلق والمقيد والنقص؟ يقول ابن رجب رحمه الله تعالى: من فضل عالما على آخر بكثرة الكلام فقد فضل الخلف على السلف. ونحن نبهر إذا وجدنا الشخص واضح العبارة بين الأسلوب وماذا وراء ذلك من العلم والعمل، والله المستعان. أعود إلى المسألة.
بسم الله، الحمد لله، والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه. فالليل ليلة الجمعة الأول من صفر لعام 35 و400 وألف من الهجرة. Tonight, the night preceding Jum'ah, the first of Safar in the year 1435 after the hijrah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We'll continue today with our lessons translating the book Nukhbatul Fikr للحافظ أبي فضل ابن حجر الأسقلاني. Nukhbatul Fikr, or the concise thought regarding the explanation of Mustalah Ahl al-Athar, the terminology of the people of fiqh, of hadith. And this explanation is that which we benefit from Abdul-Kareem al-Khudayr. Abdul-Kareem al-Khudayr, one of the scholars of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and one of the Hayat al-Kibar al-Ulama. And before we continue with today's lesson, we want to talk about a little bit of what we talked about last time. And we talked about last time the importance of this book, Nukhbatul Fikr, regarding the books of studying the science of hadith. And that this book is like the foundation for a student of knowledge regarding the terminology of the people of hadith, or Mustalah al-Hadith. And we talked a lot regarding what had to do with this book, about its explanations and its summarizations and the people who put it into poetry form, which there's no need to go back over that information again. But from the things that we talked about that were important last time was a principle that Abdul-Kareem al-Khudayr, Hafidhullah, brought up, which was the da'wah, or the claim of some people, or the call, or the request of some people, that we get rid of the books and the principles of the later scholars. And we only rely on the books or the principles that were given by the earlier scholars. And he said that although this call in its apparentness sounds well, and there's no doubt that everybody is in need of the earlier scholars, and that they are our foundation. He said that in spite of that this claim, in spite of how good it might sound, has a deficiency in it. And this deficiency is the fact that the student of knowledge, in his beginning, he won't be able to understand the statements and the principles of the earlier scholars the way that they should be understood unless he practices and trains himself with the books of the later scholars, i.e. making the books of the later scholars as a stepping stone that will allow him to accomplish a complete and correct understanding for the books of the earlier scholars. And this is the methodology in study that we talked about in all of our classes, that the individual start with the smaller aspects of knowledge before ascending to the higher ones. So Shaykh Abdul-Kareem al-Khudayr, he talked about that principle, and that it's not for the beginning student of knowledge to want to go and study, for example, Sharh al-Ilal al-Kabir of al-Tirmidhi by Ibn Rajab, or al-Ilzamat wa Tatabbu' by Ad-Daraqutni. These books that talk about major issues in the science of hadith, and he doesn't understand the fundamentals of this science, like what is sahih, and what is da'if, and what is mursal, and so forth and so on. And he said that this is because the statements of the Salaf, their statements were clear and concise and to the point. So they might say in one or two words that which the individuals after them explained in booklets. And the comprehension of the people might not allow them to understand these statements of the Salaf unless they train themselves and prepare themselves by first going over the books of the later scholars who explained these words. And he wanted to set for us an example of that with the hadith of La nikah illa biwali. There's a hadith that we know, La nikah illa biwali. There's no marriage except with a guardian. Meaning that a guardian is necessary, the woman's guardian is necessary to be present for her to get married. La nikah illa biwali. There's no marriage except with the presence of a wali. In this hadith, the scholars of the past disagreed about it. So we have Bukhari saying it's muttasil. Its chain is connected all the way to the Prophet. And Abi Hatim al-Razi, or Abu Hatim al-Razi, he says its chain is munqati' or mursal. It's missing a person between the tabi'i and the Prophet. So how can the beginning student want to judge in this affair? and he hasn't learned the fundamentals of these issues. So the Shaykh is going to continue with that example, trying to encourage us and show us the importance of learning the later books, i.e. the books closer to our generation, before trying to jump all the way back to the books of the Salaf without having the ahliyah or the suitability to be able to do so.
فأقول إذا كان الطالب ينصح وهو مبتدئ بمحاكاة المتقدمين في أحكامهم على الأحاديث. حديث لا نكاح إلا بولي حكم الإمام البخاري بوصله وحكم أبو حاتم بإرساله. بما تحكم أنت؟ هل أنت مطالب بتقليد الأئمة في كل حديث تبعا لهذه الدعوة؟ الأئمة ما اتفقوا في الحكم على حديث واحد، كيف تقلدهم؟ تقلد من؟ هل لديك أهلية وأنت مبتدئ أن تقول أن أقلد الإمام أحمد أو أقلد البخاري بالإطلاق؟ ما استفدت.
No. So the Shaykh Hafidhullah, he says, so let's return back to the issue. And so he says, I say that if a student was to, if we were to advise the student, and he was a beginning student, with focusing solely on the statements of the earlier scholars, and the affairs that they ruled regarding the hadith. If we were to tell the student to only go back to their statements, right? Then when we come to the hadith, like la nikah illa bi wali, there's no marriage except with the wali, al-Bukhari says that this hadith is connected. And Abu Hatim, he said that this hadith is mursal. So what should the student say now? If we told the student to only focus on the statements of the older scholars, this beginning student, should he blindly follow the older scholars in these affairs? And if this is the case, based on that claim, then what scholar should he follow? Should he follow Bukhari? Or should he blindly follow Abu Hatim? Or should he said Imam Ahmed. In what situation should he, blindly follow if this is the case? The point of that being that it's necessary for you to be able to reach the level to judge for yourself, to start with the fundamentals.
قد يكون الصواب مع البخاري أو مع أحمد أحيانا. إذا حكم البخاري بأن حديث رفع اليدين بعد الركعتين مرفوع إلى النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام واعتمد عليه من حديث ابن عمر في صحيحه، وحكم عليه الإمام أحمد بالوقف، قلد من المتقدمين؟ إن كان المقصود تقليد المتقدمين في كل حديث فلا شك أنه مستحيل.
No. He gives another example. So he gives the example of al-Bukhari rahimahullah, if he deems it to be an authentic raised hadith to the Prophet about raising the hands after making ruku'. And he narrates that from the hadith of Ibn Umar, which is in his Sahih. But Imam Ahmed says that this hadith is not authentically attributed to the Prophet. Then in this situation, who should we follow from the statements of the scholars of the Old? If what these people are intending when they say that we must blindly follow the statements of the scholars of old is that we follow them in every hadith, then there's no doubt that this is impossible to do. Meaning that it's not possible for us to follow them in every issue because they disagreed in issues. So the point behind this once again is what? That for us to reach the level to be able to understand on our own, we have to start with the smaller books before going to those which are bigger and more in detail.
لأن أحكام المتقدمين متباينة في الأحكام على الحديث بل وفي أحكامه على الرجال، فمن نقلد من المتقدمين؟ إن كان المقصود محاكاة المتقدمين في أحكامهم على الأحاديث نقول كلام جميل طيب وممكن، لكن كيف ممكن؟ كيف يحاكي المتقدمين فيحكم على الحديث بالقرائن وهو ما يعرف القرائن؟ قد يكون الشاهد لهذا الحديث أو المتابع لهذا الحديث بعد ورقة من الحديث الذي يدرسه ولا يعرف ولم يطلع عليه، كيف يحكم على الحديث بالقرائن؟
Here the Shaykh Hafidhullah, we might skip ahead to the book because I'm looking at what the Shaykh is continuing to talk about. And a lot of these affairs are for the student who has already studied somewhat in this issue. And he won't start the book until the next set of audio. So perhaps with Allah's permission we'll jump straight ahead to the actual book itself, because that's our goal. Then to go into too much detail with this introduction might lose individuals and our goal is to study a Nukhbah. But for any individual who wants to go back to that information, as we said, it can be found on the Sheikh's website, Khudayr, QHUDHEIR.com. And the point of what he was trying to make in all of that is the same point we made in all of our classes, is that it's necessary for the student to start with the small knowledge before going to that which is greater and bigger. So that being the case, we want to start with the first lesson on Nukhbah itself. And we won't spend too much time or any more time with going over
يطلب
the
إخوانكم في
information
موقع فضيلة الشيخ
about how to study.
عبد-الكريم بن عبد الله الخضير أن يقدموا لكم هذه المادة.
خطيب بقي عليه 5 دقائق مثلا وبحاجة إلى معرفة حديث في خطبته هل هو ثابت أو غير ثابت، يلقط الآن لا بأس، مع أن من أهل العلم من قصد توعير الوصول إلى المسألة. ابن حبان لما ألف صحيحه على الأنواع والتقاسيم طريقة فذة مبتكرة من أجل أن لا تصل للفائدة ينبغي أن يعدل عنه، لأن اللقب ما يشعر بالمصطلح والاصطلاح والعرف الخاص، وهو التوافق على استعمال ألفاظ مخصوصة يتداولها أهل كل فن على وجه التعارف فيما بينهم كما اصطلحوا عليها. ومصطلح أهل الحديث أو أهل الأثر بالضم وكهمزة نخبة المختار، النخبة المختار، وانتخبه اختاره. والفكر جمع فكرة مثل نحل ونحلة هو المروي. موضوع هذا العلم الراوي والمروي من حيث القبول والرد، وثمرته مصطلح وحديث. في المصطلح كان يكثر من الله المستعان، قال جاء الله المستعان، وخصهم بذلك الذي يكثر من هذه الكلمة. نعم، كما أنه نسب بعض العلماء إلى كتاب من الكتب وليس الكتاب من مؤلفاته، نسب إلى شخص وليس من آبائه لأنه معجب به. شخص يدير علوم وضعه فلا، الثاني باعتباره علم على هذا الفن، نعرف أن هذا العلم هو علم مصطلح الحديث، فجاء المركب مصطلح الحديث نفسه بذم يفهم محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. مبادئ هذا العلم، في بداية كل علم يبحث العلماء المبادئ التي يجمعها قول الناظم: إن مبادئ كل علم 10، الحد والموضوع ثم الثمرة، وفضله ونسبة والواضع، والاسم الاستمداد حكم الشارع، مسائل والبعض بالبعض اكتفى، ومن درى الجميع حاز الشرف.
The Shaykh Hafidhullah, he started off the first class of Nukhbah itself at minute marker 8 minutes and 6 seconds, or a little bit before that. And he said, after praising Allah Azza wa Jalla as he deserves, he said, we want to talk about first, before going into this book, the Mabadi al-Ashar, or the 10 fundamental things that everybody should know before embarking on any type of science. Before trying to learn a topic, it's important that you learn 10 things before learning that topic. And they have been gathered in the statement of the poet, Inna mabadi kulli ilmin ashara. Verily, the fundamentals of every science are 10. And for those of you who want, you should write these down. Inna mabadi kulli ilmin ashara, al-haddu wal-mawdu'u thumma al-thamara, nisbatuhu wa fadluhu wal-wadi'u, al-ismu istimdadu hukm al-shari'u, مسائل والبعض بالبعض اكتفى ومن درى الجميع هذا الشرف. These 10 things a person should know before any science. You should know its definition, where you can find it, and its benefit. The preference of this science compared to others, its relationship to other sciences. The first person to write in that field, the name of that science, where is its evidences derived from, what is the religious verdict about that science, its issues, and likewise the honor of the one who knows it. These are 11 in actuality, but they call them 10. There are 10 things or 11 things that you should know before studying every science. And I want you to pay attention because we're going to try to get through these 10 things today. Right? إِنَّمَا بَادِ كُلِّ عِلْمٍ عَشَرًا. Al-had, the definition. What is the definition of that science? For instance, in our fiqh class, we talked about the definition of fiqh. And in our grammar class, we talked about the definition of grammar. So this is mustalah al-hadith. We're going to talk about the definition of mustalah al-hadith. Al-haddu wal-mawdu'. Where can you find it at? Where can you find this knowledge being applied? If you wanted to see it yourself, where would you look? Al-haddu wal-mawdu' thumma al-thamara. Right? Thirdly, the benefit of that science. What good is it going to do you? Right? What good is it going to do you to learn this science? Al-haddu wal-mawdu'u thumma al-thamara. Fadluhu. How good is this science compared to other sciences? Right? Which one is more important? Mustalah al-hadith or usul al-fiqh? Or lugha? Or Quran? Which one is more important? Right? Fadluhu. How important it is. Nisbatuhu. Its relationship to other sciences. Like if I to go to the library, what section would I find it under? Nisbatuhu wal wadi'u. The one who first wrote in this topic. Right? This is number 6. Al-ism, what is the name of this science? Al-istimdad. Where do you get the proofs for this science? Hukm al-shari'. What is the religious verdict about this science? Is it wajib? Is it mustahab? Is it makruh? Is it mubah? Its issues, you have to learn its issues. And likewise, وَبَعْضُ بِالْبَعْدِ اكْتَفَى. And some people don't mention all 10, but whoever knows all of them has a sharafa. وَمَنْ دَرَى الْجَمِيعَ has a sharafa. Meaning, and they say that last statement, sharafa, is to talk about the 11th one, the honor of the one who knows it. So we want to learn those 10 things today. So the Shaykh Hafidhullah, he goes on to say,
فهذا العلم من حيث الحد الذي هو التعريف يحد ويعرف باعتبارين. أولا باعتبار جزئي المركب، الثاني باعتباره علم على هذا الفن.
No. He says, so when we talk about the definition of this science, we talk about it from two aspects. We talk about it from two aspects. Because what is the name of this science? Mustalah al-hadith. Right? Or usul al-hadith. So when we talk about its definition, we look at what each word means individually. We look at what each word means individually. Usul and hadith. And we also look at it from what these two mean, what these words mean as the title for this science. So when we look at the definition of this science, what is it? Usul al-hadith or mustalah al-hadith. We look at the definition of each word separately, and then we look at the definition as a title to this field of thought.
نعرف أن هذا العلم هو علم مصطلح الحديث، فجزء المركب مصطلح وحديث. فالمصطلح اسم مفعول من الاصطلاح، والمصطلح والاصطلاح هو العرف الخاص.
No. He speaks a little bit about the grammatical origin of the word mustalah. Right? Mustalah, he speaks a little bit about its grammatical origin. And he says its meaning is any specific terminology used by a certain group of people. Right? This is what the word mustalah or istilah means. That jargon or that terminology that you use amongst yourself. Right? This is what the term mustalah means. That specific type of speech that a certain group uses amongst itself.
وهو التوافق على استعمال ألفاظ مخصوصة يتداولها أهل كل فن على وجه التعارف فيما بينهم كما اصطلحوا عليها.
No. So he says, so it's that we were, for example, if we were to come together and make up words and terminologies for specific things, that we would know what they meant when we used them in context. This is what the term mustalah means. That terminology that we use amongst ourselves or any group of people use amongst themselves to clarify things. I say to you, for an example, like in the medical field, they have terminologies. Truck drivers have terminology that they use that's specific to them. That if you were in a different field, those words might mean something else. This is what the word mustalah means. Those terminologies that are specific to a particular group of individuals.
ومصطلح أهل الحديث أو أهل الأثر سمى أيضا أصول الحديث، ويسمى أيضا علوم الحديث وقواعد الحديث. إذا عرفنا أن المصطلح والاصطلاح والعرف الخاص وهو اتفاق طائفة على شيء مخصوص، وعرفنا فيما تقدم في الدرس الماضي أنه لا مشاحة في الاصطلاح في الجملة، إلا أنه إذا خالف الاصطلاح ما تقرر في علم من العلوم فإنه يشاحح فيه على ما مثلنا في الدرس الماضي.
Jay. Here he talks about, so this is the word mustalah. And as we said, the name of this science is mustalah al-hadith, mustalahu ahl al-hadith, or mustalah ahl al-athar, the terminology of the people of hadith, or the people of athar. And this science is also called usul al-hadith, the fundamentals of hadith, or ilm al-hadith, or the knowledge of hadith. This is the name of this science. And he says, like we talked about before, and this is a principle that might benefit you, is that there's no problem or no mashahah. There's no causing problems based on what people use as terminology. Right? You call it mustalah al-hadith, you call it ilm al-hadith, Abdul-Kareem calls it usul al-hadith. There's no problem. There's no mashahah fil istilah. There's no causing arguments over what people call things, as long as what they call them doesn't contradict what was laid down in that science. So you call it wajib, he calls it fard, it doesn't make a difference. You call it usul al-hadith, he calls it mustalah al-hadith, that doesn't make a difference. Right? In grammar, you call it jar, he calls it khafd, that doesn't make a difference. Because there's no attacking people over the terminology they use. So therefore, once again, the word mustalah means the terms that are used by a specific group, regarding that which they refer to. Then the Shaykh Hafidhullah goes on to talk about the meaning of the word hadith.
يقولون ضد القديم، الحديث ضد القديم أو نقيض القديم. نقول ضد القديم، أيهما أدق أن نقول ضد القديم أو نقيض القديم؟ نعم.
Jay. Here the Sheikh says the word hadith, linguistically, right? As we talked about in our other class, they have linguistical meanings and religious meanings. Linguistically, the word hadith is the opposite of old. The word hadith is the opposite of old. Or should we say it's contrary, or it's there are two words in Arabic. You got ضد and naqid. Is it the opposite, or is it contrary to what is old? Meaning this is a specific thing in Arabic that you understand. For example, I'll give you an example. Is black the opposite of white, or is it contrary to white? I'm asking. It's not the both, because an opposite is, like an opposite is one of the, I'm trying to remember correctly, one of the two things are present, right? But they can't be present together, right? While an aqid is they can't be together and they can't be apart. I'll let him explain.
قد يرتفعان لكنهما لا يجتمعان. إذن إذا ارتفعت الحداثة والقدم ماذا يحل محلهما؟ نعم، لا، هو في أي عين يمكن أن توصف بأنها قديمة أو حديثة، ولا يمكن أن توصف بأنها قديمة حديثة في آن واحد، صح ولا لا؟ هل يمكن أن توصف بأنها ليست قديمة ولا حديثة؟ إذن هما إيش؟ نقيضان.
Now, so the Shaykh Hafidhullah to summarize it for you, there's a difference between opposites and contradictories, or like naqid, like opposites, or I'll translate it as complete opposites in Arabic. Complete opposites are those type of things that one of them has to be present. It can't be both. They can't both be there, and they both can't be not there. Right? They can't both be there, and they both can't go away. For example, if something's not old, then it must be what? New. But you can't say that something is neither old or new. Right? Can you say about something that is not old or new? One of those qualities has to be there. This is what the term naqib means in Arabic. That one of those qualities has to be there. They both can't be missing and they both can't be present. While the term did in Arabic, it means that, like black and white. Does something have to be black? I mean, if something is not black, is it automatically white? No, it doesn't have to be white. That's the difference between opposites and complete opposites. This is just the benefit he gives linguistically to let you understand some of what he's saying. So he says the term hadith in the Arabic language is the naqib, the complete opposite of old. i.e., it means linguistically to be new.
الحديث في اصطلاح أهل العلم ما أضيف إلى النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام من قول أو فعل أو تقرير أو وصف.
No. Jay.
التعريف بالاعتبار الثاني.
Then he talks about the meaning of hadith and the terminology or the mustalah of the people of the science of hadith. Who knows what a hadith is? Right? All of us should know the definition of a hadith. Yalla, Abu Salim. What's the definition of a hadith? Right? A hadith is what is attributed to the Prophet from statements, actions, agreeances, like he agreed with something being done, or he was described with. This is a hadith in the religion. Something the Prophet said, something the Prophet did, something the Prophet allowed and agreed to it being done, or something he was described with. I'm going to set an example for you. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Actions are because of intention. Is this a hadith? From what aspect? It's something the Prophet ﷺ said, right? The Prophet ﷺ urinated one time on the roof of Hafsa, right? With his back facing the Qibla, right? He used the restroom with his back facing the Qibla. Is this a hadith? From what aspect? His actions, right? The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they say we used to do azl in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? They call it coitus interruptus, right? They used to pull out during the time of the Prophet. This is in Bukhari, right? Is this a hadith? From what aspect? Things that the Prophet ﷺ allowed. Likewise, they said about the Prophet ﷺ that he was a well-shaped man, a balanced man with a beard that came like halfway between his chin and his upper chest. Is that a hadith? From what aspect? Describing the Prophet, right? What did it describe? His physical. What about the hadith that says that the Prophet was the most generous in Ramadan? He was even more generous than the sent wind. Is that a hadith? From what aspect? From his description. But what kind of description? His not physical description or his characteristics, right? And his manners. So this is a hadith. Ma udifa ila nabi. من أقوال أو أفعال أو تقريرات أو وصف. Right? What is attributed to the Prophet from his statements or his actions or the things that he allowed or what he was describing. So we understand the meaning of hadith linguistically and the meaning of hadith in the religion, right? What's hadith linguistically? In the language, what does the word hadith mean? No, in the language. It's naqid al-qadim, the complete opposite of old, i.e., what's new. And in the religion, it's what? A statement, action, or allowance of who? Abu Bakr? Of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Or what else? A statement, an action, or allowance of the Prophet. But there's something else. What he was described with. What the Prophet was described with is a hadith. We say the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had 4 wives. Right? Or no, he had 9 wives, right? Or he used to go to each of his wives every night. Is that a hadith? Right, that's from his actions. We said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, البر ما انشرح إليه ما اطمأن إليه النفس وانشرح له الصدر, right? أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم, that righteousness is what you find comfort with. This is a hadith, i.e. from his statement. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his companions used to knock on his door with their fingertips. Is that from a hadith? We say yes. What aspect? What he allowed. We say that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to get mad when the rights of Allah got transgressed against, and his face would turn red like somebody squirrels a pomegranate in it. Is that a hadith? From the aspect that it's what he was described with. So this is what the term hadith means in the religion. Wadih? So this is the first way that we define mustalah al-hadith. Each word singular. Mustalah, the terms that people use in hadith, what was ascribed to the Prophet ila akhirihi, from his statements, actions, allowances, and description. These are what both of these words mean individually. Now let's see what these words mean together as a title to this science.
باعتبار علم على هذا الفن علم بقوانين يعرف بها أحوال السند والمتن، علم بقوانين يعرف بها أحوال السند والمتن، أو القواعد المعرفة بحال الراوي والمروي.
Now, so the term ilm al-hadith or mustalah al-hadith, right? What does it mean as a name for this science? When you say I want to study the science of hadith or the terminology of the people of hadith, what is this science? He says it's an ilmun bil-qawaid allati yu'rafu bihi hal al-matan was-sanad, right? A science that through it you know the condition of the chain as well as the wordage of the hadith. So what is the science of hadith going to teach us? It's going to teach us principles that once we know them, we'll be able to understand the validity of the chain and the validity of the matan or the wordage of the hadith. So it's a science about the principles that will teach us the condition of the chain or the sanad and the condition of the matan, the wordage of the hadith. Or you could say it's a science about the condition of the narrator and what he narrated. Right? This is the science of hadith, or the science of mustalah al-hadith is a science that will teach us how to recognize the status of the narrator and what he narrated. So if you want to know, is this chain authentic or not, what science do you need? You need mustalah al-hadith. Because mustalah al-hadith is going to teach us how to verify a chain. If you want to know if the wordage of this hadith was this way or that way, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ or إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّةِ or الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّةِ, if you want to know which wordage is correct, what science do you need? You need Mustalah al-Hadith, because Mustalah al-Hadith is going to teach us how to verify the wordage of the Hadith. If you want to know if such and such is authentic, if Muhammad ibn Shihab al-Zuhri was reliable, what science do you need? Mustalah al-Hadith. Get used to saying it, Mustalah al-Hadith. Why? Because Mustalah al-Hadith is going to teach us about the condition of the narrator. Right? If you want to know if what he narrated was authentic, you need Mustalah al-Hadith. Because Mustalah al-Hadith is going to teach you the condition of what he narrated. علم بالقواعد المعرفة لحال الراوي والمروي. A science about the principles that will teach you the condition of the narrator and what he narrated. Everything that has to do with the narrator and everything that has to do with his narration, the science of hadith will teach us that.
هما متقاربان لأن السند الراوي والمتن هو المروي. موضوع هذا العلم الراوي والمروي من حيث القبول والرد.
Right, so that's the first thing, right? إن مبادئ كل علم عشرة العلم الحد والموضوع ثم الثمرة. Right, the foundations of every knowledge are 10. The first one is the definition. The first one is the definition. Everything, every science you study, you should learn 10 things first. The first thing is that science's definition. What's the definition of the science of hadith? That's the definition of the word hadith. What's the definition of the science of hadith? We just said it. It's a science that will teach us the condition of the narrator and what he narrated. The science that will teach us the condition of the narrator and what he narrated. Or you can say a science that will teach us the condition of the chain and the metan. They both mean the same thing. This is the first thing, al-had, the definition. The next thing is, where can I find this science actually taking place? Right? If I wanted to see medicine taking place, where would I look? You would look in the hospital? Think about it. Where does medicine take place? Medicine. Where does medicine work? On the body. If I wanted to see medicine actually taking place, I would look at the body, right? If I wanted to see a hadith, right, where would I look? I would look at the Prophet ﷺ, his statements, his actions, right? This is what we mean by mawdu'. Where can I find that actually happening? So where can I find the science of hadith actually happening? You find it in the chain of the hadith and in the wordage of the hadith. If you want to see an example of something from the science of hadith, where would you look? You would look in the chain. Or you would look in the wordage of the hadith from the aspect of it being accepted or rejected. This one is not that clear in English, but it's clear in Arabic. And it's important to know because when you want to give an example, so you don't feel like, if you want to see an example of a hadith that's mursal, right? We'll learn what a mursal hadith is soon. If you want to see an example of an authentic hadith, where would you look? You would look at a hadith itself, right? You would look at the chain and you would look at the wordage to judge, is that hadith authentic? So that's where you can find this science being applied. If you want to see where this science is actually applied, look at the chains of hadith and the wordage. That's number 2. إن مبادئ كل علم عشرة الحد والموضوع. The next thing is, go ahead, the definition. The next thing that we need to learn before any science is, what's the benefit in learning it? Right? I'm going to ask you to see how smart you all are. How much your statements will correspond to what the Shaykh is about to say. Why do we need to learn hadith? What's the benefit in learning a hadith? All right, to properly follow Islam. Okay, anything else? All right, that's kind of like properly follow Islam so that our actions can be beneficial, i.e. anything else? All right, to avoid innovative affairs. It kind of goes back to the properly follow Islam. To teach it, right? We learn hadith to teach it, okay? Go ahead. To preserve it. I'm not saying what's right or wrong. I just want to hear what y'all say, and then we'll go and see what the Shaykh says. Here goes the Shaykh right here.
وثمرته معرفة المقبول من المردود تمييز الصحيح من السقيم من سنة الرسول عليه الصلاة والسلام.
I asked the question wrong. I might have confused you. That's the benefit of knowing a hadith. What's the benefit of knowing the science of hadith? What's the benefit in knowing this science? Why do we need to know the science of hadith? I got Bukhari. Why I need to know the science of hadith? To know the authenticity of hadith. The Shaykh Abdul-Kareem says, the benefit in knowing this science is to know the difference of what should be accepted and rejected. A hadith won't help you unless you know if it's authentic or not. How many hadith, this is my statement to you, how many hadith we hear all the time, person says it's a hadith about that, Akhi, it's a hadith about wearing black. Akhi, you shouldn't wear black. Right? It won't help you until you know if that hadith is authentic or accepted or rejected. And how will you know if the hadith should be accepted or rejected? What's the only way to figure that out? The science of hadith. The only way to figure out if a hadith should be accepted or rejected is through the science of hadith. So that's the benefit in learning this science. Right? Akhi, you shouldn't sit like that. Why not? It's a hadith. Okay, let me see the chain. Let me see the narrator. Who was he? Where was he from? Where did he learn? Is the chain connected? The only way to know this is through the science of hadith.
وفضله من أشرف العلوم وأجلها إذ بواسطته يتمكن العالم من الذب عن سنة المصطفى عليه الصلاة والسلام.
Jay. So we got one. إن مبادئ كل علم عشرة. The first one is its definition. Everybody good with its definition? Its definition. حده والموضوع ثم الثمرة. Right? إن مبادئ كل علم عشرة. الحد والموضوع ثم الثمرة. Right? Its definition. Where can I find it being applied and the benefit of learning it? Fadluhu. The next thing is the virtue of this science. How virtuous is this science? How important is this science? What do you think this science compared to other sciences, how important is this science important or is medicine important? Like which one has the more importance? Okay, so on a scale of 1 to 10, where would this science rate? 10? Yeah, 1 to 10. 1 being the least, 10 being the highest. For example, is this more important than knowing the Quran? Is this more important than memorizing hadith? Right? The Shaykh Hafidhullah says that this science is from the most honored and esteemed sciences that a person can know. The value of this type of knowledge is very high. Why is the value of this type of knowledge so high? Because through it, a person can defend the sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When you know this science, you're able to defend and protect the sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Without this, anybody can say what they want. Right? Like, who was it? Az-Zuhri lawla al-isnad, or Ibn Sirin. Lawla al-isnad laqala man sha'a ma sha'a. If it wasn't for the chain, whoever wanted to say something would have said what he wanted. Right? But this science allows us to protect the sunnah. Right? فَقَيَّدَ اللَّهُ لَهَا نُقَادُهَا فَبَيَّنُوا بِنَقْلِهِمْ فَسَادَهَا. Right? Allah sent this religion, its protectors, and they clarify with their critique the fault of those individuals who made up hadith. The point of it is that this science is from the most prestigious of sciences, right? It's from the best of sciences. So we have its definition. We have its where it can be applied. We have its benefit. We have the virtue or the importance of this knowledge. What's next? Nisbatuhu. What field is it related to? What other sciences are related to it? If I went to the library, would I look for the science of hadith in the Quran category, in the Quran section? It's a question. Would I look for the science of hadith in the Quran section? What about in the current affairs section? Where would I look for the science of hadith? What section of the library would I look in? The hadith section, mumtaz. Right? Because there's more than just hadith in the hadith section. The science of hadith, the wordages of hadith, books of people, the explanations of hadith, all of these fall under the science of hadith.
نسبته إلى غيره من العلوم، نسبة هذا العلم إلى غيره من العلوم الشرعية التي ينبغي لطالب العلم العناية بها، التباين من وجه والتداخل من وجه آخر. ايش معنى هذا الكلام؟ إذا قلنا بالتباين يعني أنه لا يمكن أن يدخل في فن من الفنون ولا يمكن أن يستغنى بغيره عنه. وإذا قلنا بالتداخل معناه أن بعض هذه المسائل من هذا العلم يمكن أن تؤخذ من علوم أخرى.
No. So the Shaykh Abdul-Kareem says the relationship of this science is that it's one of the sciences of the religion that is important to learn. It's one of the sciences of this religion that is important and necessary to learn. It is separate from an aspect, and it is also part of it from an aspect. What does this mean? What does this statement mean? That the science of hadith is part of the religious knowledge, but it's separate from one aspect and included from another aspect. He says that this is because the science of hadith alhamdulillah, the science of hadith is separate from the aspect that there's nothing else that you can learn that will take its place. So it's as if it's separate from the rest of the knowledge of religion, because there's nothing else that you can learn that will take its place, and no other knowledge will suffice you from learning this. Right? If you learn usul al-tafsir, does that mean you don't have to learn mustalah al-hadith anymore? No, you still got to learn it. Right? So it's separate from the aspect that it's unique and it stands alone, and that nothing else will suffice for you regarding that science. But it's also part of the religious knowledge, meaning that when you understand it, it helps you understand other aspects of the religion. So its relationship is that it's one of the sciences from the knowledges of the religion. Right? The knowledge of the religion. One of the sciences from the knowledge of, or the affairs of the religion.
وأمثلة هذا العلم ومسائل تؤخذ أيضا من علم آخر. واضح هذا العلم ذكرناه سابقا، وأن أهل العلم اختلفوا في أول من صنف في هذا الفن على سبيل الاستقلال.
Jay, I'm going to test you all here from those who were present in the last classes. So we got the definition. We have where can I find it being applied. We have the benefit or the fruits of learning this science. What's the benefit from it? We have the virtue of this science or the status of this science compared to others. We have the relationship of this science to other sciences. What field is it related to? The next question is, who is the first one to author a book in this science? In our first class, we talked about the origin of Mustalah al-Hadith. Does anybody remember? Who was the first person to write a book in the science of hadith? Shafi'i. Jay, what did Shafi'i do? Did he write a book specifically about it, or have information about it inside of one of his books? Mumtaz. Shafi'i wrote a book called al-Risala. And in his book al-Risala, there's a lot of information about this science in it. But his book wasn't about Mustalah al-Hadith. It was about Mustalah al-Hadith and Usul al-Fiqh. Right? Likewise, Imaam Ahmad. In his Masail, you can find a lot of the principles, but that book wasn't written specifically in that field. Who was the first person to write a book in that field? We'll see if y'all can't remember, we'll let the Sheikh remind us again. Huh? Al-Ramah-Hurmuzi. Abul-Hasan, Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Ramah-Hurmuzi. الرامة but the Shaykh can tell us right now.
وهذا تقدم، هل هو الشافعي أو أحمد أو علي بن المديني أو الإمام الترمذي؟ أقوال. قلنا إن الحافظ خرج وخلص من هذا الاختلاف بقوله فمن أول من صنف فيه الرام هرمزي.
No. He says, so we talked about it, there's a difference of agreement. Was it Shafi'i? Was it Ahmed? Was it Ali ibn al-Madini? Was it a Tirmidhi? Right? The first person to write in this field. And he said that Ibn Hajar rahimahullah escaped all of this contradiction or disagreement by saying that from the first people to write in this field was Ar-Ram Hurmuzi. Right? Al-Muhaddith al-Fasil, I believe is the name of the book. Al-Muhaddith al-Fasil.
خرج من الأولية المطلقة بلا اختلاف فيها. واسم هذا العلم مصطلح الحديث وأصول الحديث وعلوم الحديث وقواعد الحديث إلى غير ذلك.
Okay. The next question is that we got the had, right? The definition. What's next? The place you can find it being applied. Mawdu'uhu, right? Thamaratuhu. We have its fadluhu, the prestige of this science. Nisbatuhu, its relationship to other sciences, right? We have wadi'uhu, the author of this science, who was the first person to write in it, right? The next thing that we need to know is the name of this science, right? And we just talked about the name of this science. What is it called? Huh? Jay, Arabi, Mustalih al-Hadith, right? We want to get used to these terms. Mustalih al-Hadith. What else? Ilm al-Hadith, the science of Hadith, right? Also, Usul al-Hadith, the fundamentals of Hadith. Qawaid al-Hadith, the principles of Hadith. All of these names are terms or the names that are used for this science, right? And there's no argumentation based on terminology. Why is it important to know the name of it? You go to the library, you want to buy a book on Mustalih al-Hadith, but the name of the book is Ma'rifatu Anwa'i Ilm al-Hadith, a knowledge about the types of the science of Hadith. Do you buy that book? The book's name is the science of Hadith, but you want a book in Mustalih al-Hadith. Do you buy that book? Yeah. Why? Because they're the same thing. Because you know the different names of it, right? So it's important to know the name of the science, right? So we got al-Hadd wal-Mawdu'u thumma al-Thamara, fadluhu wa nisbatuhu wal-Wadi'u, al-Ism, the name of this science. The next thing is where the proofs of this science derive from.
استمداد مستمد هذا العلم من كلام أئمة الحديث وأمثلتهم من دواوين السنة ورواة من كتب الجرح والتعديل وحكم تعلم.
Jay, where do you all think the evidence for this science is taken from? Right? Where do you all think we can find the evidence of this science? Like, how do we base our principles on? What do we base it on? Is there an ayat in the Quran that tells you that this is authentic hadith, or ayat or hadith in the Prophet where it says this is how you grade an authentic hadith? Where do you think we derive the rules that we use about this science? From the ulama, mumtaz, right? The statements of the ulama are the foundation of this science. The Shaykh Abdul-Kareem, he says that this science is taken from the statements of the scholars of hadith. Right? People like Bukhari, Tirmidhi, Abu Dawood, their statements are what we use to judge is a hadith authentic or not. Right? The books of the Sunnah, the books of people, right? The books of Rijal is, Ad-Du'afa, Al-Uqayli, right? And all of these different books, Taqrib al-Tahdhib, all these books is what we use to determine the rules that we make in the science of hadith. And as we'll see, this will be clear, right? Al-Shafi'i is the one who called this hadith munqati', right? And he said that this is what a munqati' is. And then, other people said, no, a munqati' is this. And some people said a mursal is this. Other people said, no, this is a mursal, right? These rules are derived from the statements of the scholars. It's not something that is in the book in the Sunnah, right? As far as the aspect that you can find a chapter in the Quran that teaches us the rulings of how to authenticate a hadith. Instead, these are what the scholars derived in order to preserve this religion. So that's number, 8? Al-Hukm, no. That's number, 8, because we got Al-Hukm al-Shari. Right? So that's number 8. It's where is it derived from? Number 9 is its issues. Masail. One more after this.
فرض من فروض الكفايات كغيره من العلوم الشرعية إذا قام به من يكفي سقط الاسم عن الباقين وصار في حكم الباقين سنة.
The religious ruling of learning the science of hadith. We said, what's the benefit of learning the science of hadith? We just said it a minute ago. The benefit, huh? Yeah, why do we need to learn it? What's the point? Right, to know the authenticity of the hadith, right? And to protect the sunnah, right? What should be accepted, what should be rejected. Therefore, what do you think is the religious ruling about learning this hadith? Learning this science. What is is it wajib? Is it haram? Is it mustahab? Is it mubah? Huh? Mandatory? So that means everybody who's not here in the class right now is sinning, right? Mustahab. That means nobody has to do it. It's just okay if you do. It's better if you do. Somebody, what's it called when somebody has to do it? Fard al-Kifaya. Fard al-Kifaya. Do y'all know the difference between Fard al-Ain and Fard al-Kifaya? Fard al-Ain is like Salat. What Muslim has to pray Salat? Every Muslim has to pray Salat. If a Muslim doesn't pray Salat, he's sinning. What if Abu Salim doesn't pray? Am I sinning? No. His Salat is his problem, my Salat, or his responsibility. My Salat is my responsibility. This is what is known as Fard al-Ain. Right? Most of the time when we say wajib, this is what we mean. Right? Fasting. What's the ruling on fasting in Ramadan? Right? It's Fard al-Ain. Right? Every Muslim has to do so. Right? But if Abu Salim doesn't fast, that's his problem. Right? Now, Fard al-Kifaya is an obligation that enough Muslims have to do. And if enough Muslims do it, then for everybody else it's just the sunnah. But if enough Muslims don't do it, then everybody's sinning. An example of that, Salat al-Janazah. Right? How many people have to pray Salat al-Janazah? Just one. If one person prays Salat al-Janazah, the obligation is lifted. Everybody else who does it is just getting the sunnah. But if nobody prays Salat al-Janazah, who's sinning? Everybody. Right? What about saying Yarhamukallah when a Muslim sneezes? Everybody has to do it? La, Fard al-Kifaya. La, Fard al-Kifaya. Scholars disagree, but it's Fard al-Kifaya. Just like returning the salams. It's Fard al-Kifaya. One person does it, it's sufficient for the rest. Right? I say, scholars disagree. Somebody might say that it's Fard al-Ain, right? What about jihad? Kifaya, right? How many Muslims got to go? Just one, right? Enough. If enough go, then everybody else doesn't have to go. This is what is Fard al-Kifaya. So what is the ruling about learning this religion or learning this science, the science of hadith? It's Fard al-Kifaya. If enough Muslims learn it, nobody else needs to, and it's a sunnah for everybody else. But if nobody learns it or not enough learn it, everybody's sinning. Right? So what you all are doing, your brothers owe you a debt of gratitude. Right? Because while they're at home and they're relaxing, they get to do what they're doing, they're eating right now, they're hanging out. You all are alleviating the burden off of them. By you all learning this, they don't have to learn it. So, your brothers owe you a debt of gratitude.
قد يتعين على من توفرت فيه الأهلية ولم يشط غيره مسده.
Then he says that, so it's a Fard al-Kifaya, but it might become a specific obligation on the one who has the ability. Meaning that, let's say for instance, nobody in the city of St. Louis is learning the science of hadith. What does it become then? It becomes an individual obligation on everybody until enough people start to do it. Right? So it's a Fard al-Kifaya and it might become mandatory on an individual. Right? That's its religious ruling. The last thing before we close today is its issues.
مسائل هذا العلم قضاياه التي تذكر فيه كالصحيح والضعيف والمرسل والمدلس والمعنعن وغيرها من الأنواع. قال والبعض بالبعض اكتفى، يعني أن بعض الناس اكتفى ببعض مسائل هذا العلم أو غيره تكاسلا، لكن من درى الجميع، من عرف جميع مسائل هذا العلم وجميع مسائل غيره من العلوم الشرعية فقد حاز الشرف بأكمله والله المستعان.
Now, the Shaykh Hafizahullah, he says that as far as the issues of this science, what are some of the issues that you think are in this science? What are some of the topics that this science will cover? Wudu? Wafiqun wala mukhalifun? Y'all agree with him, y'all disagree? That the science of hadith is going to teach us wudu. There's going to be a chapter in this book that's going to teach us wudu. Y'all agree or disagree? Don't be shy. You agree or disagree? You disagree. Right? I disagree. There's no wudu in this book, right? Where do we look for wudu at? What book will we look to find wudu? Which was fiqh, right? We will look in the books of fiqh to find wudu. But this is a book of the science of hadith. We won't even find hadith in this book. We won't even find a hadith in this book, right? Except from the aspect of trying to give us an example. What are we going to find in this hadith? What do we say it teaches us? What is this science? What does it teach us? What does it teach us? Go back to this definition. What does it teach us? How to break down the chain in the narrator, right? So what are some of the issues that relate to a chain? Right? The Shaykh Abdul-Hakim says some of his issues are like, what is sahih? What is a sahih hadith? What is a hasan hadith? What is a da'if hadith? What's a mursal hadith? What's a mudallas? Right? What's a mu'an'an? And other than that, from the different types of hadith. There's more than just one type of hadith. Right? There are all of these terminologies that we use and apply them to hadith. The different types of books of hadith. How to hear a hadith. How to give a hadith. All of these things will be its issues. And we'll learn them one by one, inshallah. Then he goes on to say, so this is the poem, right? The 10 things that we need to know. إن مبادئ كل علم عشرة الحد والموضوع ثم الثمرة فضله ونسبته والواضع الاسم استمداد حكم الشارع مسائل والبعض بالبعض اكتفى ومن در الجميع هذا الشرف. Right? Verily the foundations of every science are 10. Right? What does this mean? The things you need to learn before anything. You go learn fiqh, you need to learn these 10 things about fiqh. You go learn language, you need to learn these 10 things about language. You go learn medicine, you need to learn these 10 things about medicine, right? You go learn how to be a taxi cab driver, you need to learn these 10 things about how to be a taxi cab driver, right? The foundations of every science are 10 issues. The first one is what? It's definition. Al-had. What's number 2? Where you can find it, right? Yeah, an example. Where you can find it being applied. The Arabic word is mawdu'. Where can I see it with my own 2 eyes, right? The third thing is its benefit, mumtaz. What's number 4? Its virtue or the preference of this science. How important is it? Number 5, its relationship compared to others. Right? The status of it compared to others is its fadl. That was number 4. Its relationship to other sciences. Like, where is it connected to? Like we said, this is the science of hadith. And hadith is the science of the religion. You see what I'm saying? So I wouldn't go to contemporary affairs in the library. I would go to the religious section. Then I would go to the hadith section. Then I would go to the mustalah section if I wanted to find it. Huh? Yeah, in a Muslim library, yeah. If you go to WashU, they have it. If you go to WashU, if you go to their library, you say, where's your Arabic section? Right? And they have actually WashU has a very good Arabic library section. Very good, right? You go there, and boom, there it goes, the Arabic section. You say, okay, where's the hadith section? And boom, there goes the hadith section. And when you get to the hadith section, you say, okay, where's the mustalah section? And you go, boom, there's the mustalah section. In your public library, right, where would the science of religion be found at? I mean, where would the sciences of Islam be found at? First place you go is the religious section, right? After the religious section, now you want what? The Islamic section, right? Because you got Christianity, Buddhism, right? Go to the Islamic section. Then in the Islamic section, you're looking for what? Hadith next. You know, they got the hadith section, right? And depending on how many books that library has will determine how big their sections are. Their hadith section might just be a copy of summarized Muslim. This is our hadith section, right? And if you go to, you know, my library is different. You know what I mean? You go to one of the Mashaykh's library, their libraries are big. So the libraries actually have these sections. That's why it's important to know its relationship. So when you get into the library, you're not just lost, you know exactly where to go. Right? So it's nisbah, that's number 6. Right? What's number 7? The easy one. It's the easy one. Its name. Number 7 is the name of the science. Right? This one should actually go before its nisbah. Right? These order is not important, but usually it's ism, know the name of the science. How you going to study something you don't know what it's called? What you learning today? I learned, what's it called again? What we learned in class yesterday? Right? You don't know what it's called. You got to know the name of what you're learning, right? Al-ism. Then number 8 is, go ahead, Abu Salim. Right, where it comes from. Al-istimdad. Where does its proofs come from? Number 9. No, that is the answer to number 8. What is number 9? Hukm al-shari'u, the religious verdict. And what's number 10? Its issues. What are its issues or its topics? You should learn those, right? What am I going to learn in this field? So these are the 10 things we learned today. إن مبادئ كل علم 10 الحد والموضوع ثم الثمرة فضله ونسبته والواضع والاسم استمداد حكم الشارع مسائل والبعد بالبعد اكتفى ومن درى الجميع هذا الشرف. And the only other thing we talked about today, he talked about something that was, I wanted to retouch on, I can't remember now, it was in the first tapes. No, I guess not. Yeah, so, Jay, we'll stop at that amount. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد. Is there any questions about what we talked about today? 8 is istimdad, al-istimdad. Al-istimdad. Where can it be? Where is it derived from? For example, where is fiqh derived from? Where is fiqh derived from? Where do we get the proofs for fiqh? Quran and Sunnah, right? What about the Arabic language? Where is that derived from? Where do we get the proofs, right? If I want to say, somebody comes to you and says, al-istila, istawa bimana istawla, right? The word istiwa, which really means to rise above into a sin, they say it means to take control. How can I say you're wrong? What do I use as a proof to say you're wrong? How do I prove language? Hadith, Quran, or the statement of the Arabs of old. The statements of the Arab of old, right? This is the pre-Jahiliyyah, like the Jahiliyyah in the early generations. They're the ones who determine if it's language. So if I say that the Arabic word for this is bakhs, right? You say, la, ya akhi. The Arabs, they never called it that before. But no, that's what we call it nowadays. You say, la. The way they use the language is how we use the language, right? So language has a place that it's taken from. Fiqh has a place that it's taken from. Where's Aqidah derived from? Where's Aqidah taken from? Quran and Sunnah. Where's medicine taken from? Yeah. Quran and Sunnah or tajarrud, right? Trial and error. We get this pill, you get better, we say it works. We get this pill, you get sick, we say it don't work. Don't take that one no more, right? This is what is istimdad. This is what we mean when we say where it's derived from. Right? J. Also today we talked about the meaning of the word mustalah, which is the terms that people agree on amongst themselves. So if me and you agree that we're going to call vacuums from now on trucks, right? If me and you talk, I say, go give me the truck, man. Right? We say that's what we call it. Right? No problem. That's terminology. That's mustalah. Right? This is what people use amongst themselves. Like African Americans, we say junk. Right? All the time. Give me that junk over there, man. Right? This is our terminology. We know what you're talking about, right? What's the term? What's something that Bosnians use all the time for things that, doesn't mean what it means except amongst you all. I know the Yemenis, they used to say dub. Right? They call each other a bear. Right? And we say dog, right? What's up, dog? Right? They call each other a bear. Huh? Yad? Yaro? What's that mean? It's like dude. What it mean? The khalas, right? Kaboom, right? Jay. Anyway, so this is terminology, which is mustalah. What does hadith mean linguistically? The complete opposite of oath, right? The naqid of oath. What does it mean in the religion? And it's the last thing for the day. He already said what he allowed. Not just characteristics, what he was describing. Because that can be physical or his character, right? Jay, we'll stop at this amount. Any other questions? Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. We stopped at 14:27 on tape 2.